In the vein of Ibram X. Kendi's binary of racist or anti-racist, we are at such an important point in human history that one simply cannot be just a human. We're either pro-humanist or an anti-humanist. You see, the anti-humanists, they see the individual as problematic. They also reject the idea that we are created equally and that we have a common humanity. Anti-humanists support systemic racism by building systems that reward and punish individuals according to their inherent traits. Anti-humanism also employs this Western Marxism framework of orthodox diversity, equity, and inclusion as its philosophical and solution-finding model. Now, the reason why that this is an anti-humanist approach isn't just the fact that our history shows that this idea has always led to genocide. Let's look at some recent events right now. So this movement really cultivates resentment, shame, and feelings of unworthiness, all directed to people depending on their biology and where they rank according to the intersectionality pyramid. The recent hate and violence perpetrated against the Asian American community is an example of this. Since Asians are at the top of this new Marxism pyramid, there's a lot of resentment and hate being driven towards people because of their inherent biologies. This is what we're seeing in real time now. That's why it is such an important time to make this distinction of anti-human and pro-human. We have the ability to stop this. The pro-humanist stance believes that the individual is a divine conscious being with unique perspectives, talents, and skills. Pro-humanists also believe that we are created equally by our Creator and that we celebrate our common humanity and that we're planning for a shared future as well. Pro-humanists reject all forms of discrimination, prejudice, racism, and hate because we are inherent divine conscious beings. So rather than using the orthodox diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, I'm proposing that pro-humanists adopt what I call compassionate humanism. So compassionate humanism is a framework of ideas and practices that I crafted that address the recent failings of orthodox diversity, equity, and inclusion by cultivating our most positive human traits and mitigating the barbaric ones. You see, all humans are wired with the capacity for altruism and compassion. We're also wired with the capacities for prejudice, aggression, and cruelty. Therefore, designing educational and societal systems with this in mind is imperative for the individual and the collective. So compassionate humanism centers human dignity, promotes mindsets of inquiry and compassion, and is built on 3 pathways of practice. So let's talk about human dignity. By honoring the dignity of self and others is that, first of all, we make a distinction between the human and the being. So the human is essentially what you see here. It's my biology, it's my conditioned personality. That's all of our humanness. Beneath the humanness is our being. And despite the differences in our human selves, our beings share 2 qualities. They only have 2 qualities, and we share these 2 qualities. And those qualities are the desire to avoid suffering and the willingness to alleviate suffering of others when we encounter it. By navigating the world through a dignity-focused lens, we reduce injustice, we reduce harm, and actually prevent that. So the pro-human movement is built on human dignity. So let's look at and expanding on human dignity, and how we are able to do that is by disrupting mindsets and thoughts of judgment and fear and replacing those with inquiry and compassion. Because most of the time we come to snap judgments and we react in fear, and those are survival features of our brain. However, in this modern era, much of the fear and much of the judgment that is put on us is unnecessary and is causing human division. Especially when this is the motivation of Orthodox DEI is fear and judgment and keeping us divided. So other than human dignity and those mindsets of compassion and inquiry, now we've got three pathways of practice. The first is practices that build awareness and equanimity. So this means cultivating self and social awareness. It involves identifying strengths and our areas for growth. This is where we get to cultivate fairness, accountability, resilience, courage, and humility, so that we can respond to our environment and circumstances in ways that serve us and our communities. Cultivating equanimity allows us to access these qualities when circumstances and situations become chaotic and uncertain. Cultivating equanimity means adopting a regular contemplative and mindfulness practice. Next is practices that build kindness and compassion for self and others. Acts of kindness and compassion are linked to the release of oxytocin and feelings of secure attachment, and have the ability to transform someone's day and even life. Frequent and intentional acts of kindness and compassion can connect us in previously unimaginable ways. The final pathway of practice is practices that celebrate our common humanity. Celebrating our common humanity means sharing our stories so that we can see each other as we see ourselves. Pain, failure, love, and joy are all part of the human experience. The more we can connect with others, the greater our bond and less our division become. So neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to grow and change throughout our lifetime and occurs wittingly or unwittingly. Therefore, we become the sum of our thoughts, behaviors, and habits on a neurological level. The theory and practice of orthodox diversity, equity, and inclusion is reinforcing the narratives of fear, judgment, division, and chaos. Therefore, it is anti-human in practice. Just as the Frankfurt School scholars hypothesized their ideas would over time dissolve the individual and erode society, I believe that compassionate humanism, when employed over time, will fortify the individual and restore society. I hope that you will join me in stepping aside and leaving anti-human practices aside, and let's begin to do something different. The future of humanity depends on the choices that we make today. It's time that we step up and make the right ones.